I'm Wayne Hemingway, I'm a designer. When I was a young'un, I formed a company called Red or Dead with my wife, which we sold back in the 90s. Now we have a company called Hemingway Design and also founded the company Vintage. Yeah, well, I think you've got to have a good idea when you build up a brand. Number one is to have an idea and to make sure that there's a need out there, or to have an inkling that there's a need out there. And to have a USP and a raison d'etre of why you exist. People fall in love with brands, but they can also fall out of love with them. So you've got to work hard at it, you've got to cherish it, you've got to really start to understand about what you're trying to create. And really to start to look at what competition is out there. Sometimes you might do something in an area where there's no competition, and to do that you have to kind of pinch yourself occasionally to think, is there a reason why there's no competition? Is there a need for this brand? I'm a great one for questioning all the time. Is this idea going to fly? And so before you actually think about marketing it, you've got to start thinking, is it an idea that's marketable? If it is an idea that's marketable, then there are all sorts of ways to do it, and times are changing. Online and offline have to exist together. I think if you try and do everything in one single direction nowadays, then you're probably going to damage the chances of your idea flying. In the early days of when we set up Red or Dead, which was back at the beginning of the 80s, obviously everything then was about getting the word out through word of mouth. We didn't have the money to do any kind of advertising. Even the cheapest form of advertising wasn't on the cards. But also, we'd also worked out that it was a brand that would probably not do very well by advertising. It had to be something that had an underground swell. So to do that, it was about seeding the brand in the right locations, popping up in the right locations. And above all, making sure that the product that you did the talking for itself. Nowadays, when we've just built the brand Vintage, which is a brand that's growing pretty quickly at the moment, that again was a combination of the old school way of marketing, from going out and leafleting to fly posting to doing pop-up shops and just getting the word out there. But at the same time, we did an absolutely amazing digital campaign, which was about creating newsletters, which were online magazines where people could find out more about Vintage, that they could subscribe to, and you start to build up a subscriber base. We set up a Facebook, which within a year, less than a year actually, has gathered just short of 18,000 weekly users. They're coming on there because we allow other people who are in the vintage sphere, so people who might be holding a vintage fair, somebody who might be selling a really cool piece of furniture on eBay. It's a quality site where people can just go on there and talk about their passion. That's what the internet is for. It's for people to come together in a space where they couldn't normally physically come together. So if you treat it like that and it becomes a very useful tool for people, then you've got a chance of building your brand on the back of that. Number one, you've got to be really careful about money. That should be at the paramount of your thinking all the time, because great ideas flounder on money situations going wrong. So frugality, thrift, absolutely being careful should be number one. Invariably, if it's a good idea, people will be telling you it's a good idea all the time, and naturally as a human being you get excited about that and you start woo, woo. And it's like, I always say, well, hold your galloping horses, because a good idea is a good idea, and people and your friends and your family will all get excited, just as excited as you do. But the reality is, how many things are you selling? All the time it's got to be, what is the turnover? Can I justify this? So it's a case of pushing things so that you're taking risk without actually risking everything that you've done. Because again, I've seen so many times amazing ideas that have just kind of tried to run before they can crawl. When we advertise or promote our brand, we'll always make sure that we tie in. If we're going to do a poster campaign around a city, we'll make sure that the newsletter that goes out has the same key messages as the poster campaign and has the same imagery. And then people start to notice, oh, I've seen that on the internet, I've seen that on the wall of the London Underground, I've seen that on the back of a bus. And it's all of that people, you've got to be where everybody are. And part of the time people are walking the streets, and other times they're on the internet, start doing something. Well, we couldn't do what we do now in terms of our modern businesses without online, simple as that.